When it comes to MMOs, there is always a massive focus on endgame. When are we getting the next raid? What is going to be the next PvP challenge that we are going to need to take on? Is there going to be a new world boss? Is there going to be new gear that we're going to get to raise our item level by another 5 points? Etc, etc, etc. Endgame, endgame, endgame. Huge focus on that to keep players playing at the endgame. But usually you don't really see a huge focus on the leveling experience being refined outside the initial launch of whatever base game or expansion there is. And you can trust me on this because I'm a huge MMO veteran. WildStar, Elder Scrolls Online, Old School RuneScape, New School RuneScape, EverQuest, Final Fantasy XI, Final Fantasy XIV, and of course the big-in World of Warcraft. The Titan everyone is always trying to topple, and it seems like this Titan has been one of the first to go ahead and try to inject more fun back into the leveling experience. And the way they've done that is with the Remix, most recently Legion Remix, a mode that I think every single MMO should start to include after it's been out long enough. Now you might not know what a remix is, so let me explain. In Legion Remix, the WoW devs have decided to create a little pocket server and ramp all of the abilities up to 11. Your characters will level super fast. Your characters will get additional abilities. Your characters will find mountains of additional buffs existing throughout the world. And you will use those buffs and abilities to create a character that's absolutely ridiculous. Have you seen those endgame Diablo 4 and Path of Exile streams where people are just having like 7,000 different abilities going at the same time? And you don't really quite sure know what's going on, but you know they are absolutely obliterating everything in your path? That is what Legion Remix is providing, but in the MMO sphere. And you can go ahead and level your character all the way up to the maximum level, and once you're comfortable with the character, you can go ahead and transfer them over to the main version of the game, completely rebalancing them outside of Remix and being able to use them in that much beloved endgame content going forward. Now, when I say every MMO should have this, you might be saying, but my guy, we gotta worry about the balance. We gotta make sure that the world experience in the base game is balanced. We gotta make sure that endgame is balanced. We've gotta meet that teetering act so players aren't just steamrolling and then completely quitting the game after they master all of the content. We gotta have some sort of skill level, some skill cap, some goal to continually press forward where you have a % chance to fail. But with what Legion Remix is providing, one, it is entirely opt-in to choose to be super duper overpowered. You have to opt into the mode, you have to make a brand new character to go through the mode, and as you're going through the mode, you have chosen, I want this character to be ridiculously overpowered, this is the experience that I want. And if you want to go back to that standard retail experience, you absolutely can. That is 100% available for you. And even after playing that current character for a while, if you decide you're bored with being overpowered, you can move them over to the retail version of the game. Compartmentalizing Remix like this gives players a lot of opportunity to play the kind of game that they want. If being super overpowered doesn't appeal to you, you don't have to touch that mode, and you can just play the standard way that the game is at the time. But if you're looking to level a brand new character in a brand new class, and you want to have an opportunity to level that character in ridiculously fun ways, maybe not indicative of how endgame is going to go, but you just want to have a blast with steamrolling through something, then the Remix is there for you. And it's not even like the Remix is only bringing along that leveling experience, an alternate path to level a character, though if it existed all the time and just solely provided me that, I'd be happy with it. But it's also providing characters with the ability to get a bunch of new costumes, a bunch of new armor sets that they can use to make their character look cool, and a bunch of new mounts that they can ride so their character can look cool, a bunch of pets you can have follow you around so again, your character can look cool. Because at the end of the day in an MMO, that is half of the battle, that is half of the endgame, is how can I make my character fulfill the fantasy inside my head. So many games aren't looking for any sort of way to change up the leveling experience. Sure, they might have some new novel ideas, like one thing I really like about Elder Scrolls Online is your ability to essentially go anywhere and do whatever quests interest you in whatever order you want to level up your character. Everything will scale, rewards will scale, character level will scale, enemy level will scale, and you can just tackle things in a method that interests you. One of the big memes that has come out recently is Final Fantasy XIV announcing its Monster Hunter collaboration, and all they asked is the tiny tiny ask of leveling a character to the max level in order to participate in the collab. A lot of people memed on this, and I'm not trying to just, pile on Final Fantasy XIV right now, even though it's kind of in a rough spot. But it really goes to show that when people were asked to level their character all the way to the max level, not only were a lot of new players negative to the concept of having to do that to play a collab that got them into the game in the first place, but a lot of old veterans were even like, this isn't necessarily right. This isn't necessarily the best thing. They had previously gone through the leveling experience. And while the A Realm Reborn OG beginning of Final Fantasy XIV has been revamped a little bit, revamping a lot of the game for a leveling experience is still an ongoing project. And without any sort of alternate way to plow through it, it's just you have to do the main story quest. You have to do it. There's no way around it. Right now, you might be thinking to yourself, why is it such a difficult ask to play the game? Like, just play the game if it interests you. Play the game in the way that the developers intend it to. But a lot of MMO development, MMO focus, MMO conversation always ends up hinging around the endgame. That is the point of the game where balance most matters. That is the point of the game where challenges are what you want to get in order to prolong your endgame experience. That is where we're looking for progressively harder content, progressively harder raids, and essentially the skill checks that the end game players want to keep playing. But if you're one of those players that just likes leveling alts, which is an entirely valid way to play the game, maybe you just do raid finder stuff, none of the hardcore stuff, having an alternate way to play through that is always incredibly welcome, especially an alternate mode that not only has that, but is also a nice hotbed for testing new ideas. As I talk about difficulty, one of the things I am the most excited for in Legion Remix, and something I've had a massively positive reception to, is the Mythic World tier difficulty. Another thing I think all MMOs should offer in some way, shape, or form. See, you have the opportunity at any time to just turn on this mode that makes all the enemies in the world far more difficult to fight than the standard face rolling in the normal mode for the game. And on top of that, some enemies can have special abilities, special buffs, and many myriad ways to just ultimately decimate you. But in line with that, you end up getting better rewards. You end up getting gear that's a little bit stronger. You end up getting more experience for your weapon. You end up getting special drops that you might not get otherwise. And that is one of the other beautiful things I think MMO should have on offer. Sure, you might want to be a player going through a casual leveling experience, but if the success of things like hardcore MMO servers where characters have permadeath have shown anything, it's that there are some players who crave a challenge during the leveling experience, and having a way to toggle on an optional normal or hard mode leveling experience is great. It doesn't take away from any of the normal leveling experience. All the regular players still have that available. But for someone who craves a challenge and wants consummate rewards that meet that challenge, having something like a heroic world tier, a mythic world tier, where the world is a little more difficult, not only adds more vibrancy and danger to exploring in the world, but having some sort of reward side to it also grants players who want those more difficult challenges a greater sense of accomplishment. If it has been obvious to you by now, by the end of the video, I am entirely engrossed in Legion Remix. There's so many characters I want to play and make. I messed around with a bunch of different characters, settled on a shaman for my final run, just because the ability to move while casting is something that might not seem like a big deal for you, but for me, someone who has played a shaman in the past, being able to move while casting just completely changes the class and makes it absolutely ridiculous. Something so simple, being able to bring such joy to a class I've played for hours and hours before, is really, really delightful. And I can't wait to see what other silly methods I can use to break characters when I play other alts in Legion Remix. But let me know your thoughts down below. Do you believe that MMOs should offer some sort of alternate leveling mode, potentially where you make your characters absolutely ridiculous and powerful like Legion Remix? Maybe a more abridged story mode for things like Final Fantasy XIV, where the length of the story can seem daunting, where we just sort of compress it down to all of the important bits and not worry about stuff like that? Do you think that's a good idea, or do you feel like it's a waste of resources and we should just focus on one regular experience, even for games that have been around for a really long time? I want to know, so let me know down in the comment section. As you head down there, be sure to check out the Discord, Patreon, and Ko-fi. Huge thanks to everyone on all of those platforms for all of their support. We're of course going to throw up the graphic thanking every individual person for their support. It means a lot to me, really helps me out, and it really just any sort of support, even just a comment, gives me more motivation to make more of these videos. So thank you to everyone for whatever support you've shown. Anyways, gang, that's it for me, Kawaii50. I hope you all have a phenomenal day, and I'll see you all in the next one.